Ever since the Twilight craze, Robert Pattinson has been choosing increasingly interesting projects. Just over the course of the last 5 years, he's appeared in 2 David Cronenberg films, Cosmopolis and Maps to the Stars, 2 criminally underrated films in my opinion, but he's also played for Werner Herzog, Anton Corbijn, James Gray in The Lost City of Z, which came out earlier this year and is one of the best films of the year so far. And now, by choosing to play for the Safdie brothers in Good Time, he's clearly picked another winner. Directors Josh and Benny Safdie have been getting a lot of positive praise from the festival circuit in the last 10 years or so. Their first film, first feature film, The Pleasure of Being Robbed, which was released way back in 2008, was getting a huge amount of just great criticism when it hit the festival circuit almost 10 years ago. But the film was only released to about 7 theaters throughout the United States, grossing a measly $7,000. So now you'd hope with a star like Robert Pattinson in their film that finally one of their films is going to get a wider release. Now the movie was released this weekend in New York and LA in just a couple theaters, but I think it'll be expanding throughout the coming weeks to more and more US cities, and I know that it'll hit Montreal on the 25th. Before that, the movie had been really touring the festival circuit around the world. It premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, where the word of mouth was just extremely positive, and it received something like a 6-minute standing ovation, which is great because it can. A lot of people get booed. Even great films get booed, so it's not necessarily a bad thing always. And I had the chance to see it a couple days ago at the Fantasia Film Festival, where both directors Josh and Benny Safdie were present, as well as Robert Pattinson. The best description I could give of the film is it's sort of a gonzo crossover between an art film and a pop genre movie. It takes place almost entirely over the course of one night, and the closest comparison I could find, the movies that immediately ran through my brain while I was watching it, were Martin Scorsese's After Hours and the New York section of Jim Jarmusch's 1991 A Night on Earth. Robert Pattinson plays Connie, a small-time crook in Queens who has a mentally challenged brother who really should receive medical attention, and they rob a bank. Of course, the heist goes poorly, and his brother is caught by the cops. He goes to jail. He then gets severely beat up by one of the inmates and ends up in the hospital. And the majority of the film takes place in that night, where Robert Pattinson is wandering around Queens trying to bust his brother out of the hospital in which he's being detained by the police. So the filmmaking from the first second is just top-notch. Everything you need to know about the characters, about their relationships to one another, about their personalities, it's given to you without ever having to be expository. The first scene is just an amazing example of how you indicate elements to an audience without ever having to just flat out say them. The movie's very much shot handheld with crazy crash zooms to give off sort of a naturalistic documentary feel. And I say that, but it's not entirely true because there are so many clear-cut directorial choices. For example, the movie uses almost no wide shots. Everything is shot with crazy close-ups where every character is sort of confined to their own little spaces, even when there are several different characters in a scene and they're all having these incredibly complex overlapping dialogues. I don't think, as a matter of fact, I've seen such a negation of wide shots and such a massive use of close-ups since Xavier Dolan's It's Only the End of the World. And then, after having basically shoved the spectator in the actors' faces for an hour and a half, the directors then have the balls to shoot their entire climax super wide from overhead, not even from the point of view of your main character, just sort of taking out any empathy or any emotional climax that the spectator could have. The filmmaking is just actually incredibly precise. So I use the word documentary style so that people have a mental projection because we all have sort of an idea of what that means. but it actually just constantly fluctuates between this naturalistic and impressionistic sort of tone and filmmaking. So it's almost like somebody made a documentary on acid. And to add to that, there's just an incredibly, amazingly well thought out use of color throughout the film. There's just colors everywhere, kind of like in a Nicholas Winding Refn film, except since they shoot on film, 35mm film, the colors are just so much more detailed and more complex and richer, and they really just add that much more weight and power to the overall visual style of the film. Pattinson as Connie is just wonderful. I mean, he's great. He plays a complete sociopathic narcissist who thinks that everything he's doing is out of some sort of brotherly love. He, in reality, is totally incapable of any love or any empathy. He views other people, and his brother in particular, as people who should just serve him. And what makes him even better is that he's totally devoid of any self-consciousness of that fact. But all the other characters are great. Ben Safdie as his brother, who's also one of the co-directors, is wonderful. Jennifer Jason Leigh makes an appearance, a tiny small cameo, and she's great. But everybody throughout the film is perfect. The directors hired a lot of real people in their roles, so like when they go to the bail bondsman's office, he's just a bail bondsman. The cops are cops and the inmates are real inmates, and that just adds so much character and personality to the film, which I think is one of the best compliments you could give the film, is it just has so much personality oozing through it in every frame. I don't know how to put this super eloquently, but to me the film just felt New York. I don't know a better way to phrase that, but they never have to show a landmark or show something that's typically New York or indicate where the film is taking place, but within the first photogram of that movie, you know that you're in New York, you know that you're in Queens, and I think it's the combination of the cinematography and of the directors that are from around there and the actors that just make that New York personality really shine through the entirety of the movie. And finally, to top it all off, the music by Daniel Lopatin is just fantastic. It's enveloping, it's just thrilling and exciting. I've been listening to it constantly for the past couple of days. It's really quite amazing. And to top it all off, again, they got Iggy Pop to record an original song for the end credits. I mean, really, what more do you want? And the end credits are really good, so people should stay for them. There's not like a stinger like at the end of Marvel movies or anything. It's just that on top of the end credits is just a scene. It's a scene that you're supposed to watch, and it's almost the emotional centerpiece of the film, so you really want to stay until that last frame. So yeah, it really sounds like I'm sucking the movie's dick, and I probably am, and gladly so. It's the best film I've seen all year so far, and I just urge everybody that when this comes out in your area to go out and watch this crazy, trippy, wild, fantastic movie.
You love me, don't you? Don't you?